Boker Tov, Shabbat Shalom, good morning. Our curriculum study this morning will deal with the subject preserving the vintage wine, a preservation of the vintage wine. That's what we want to look at. Doubtless, wines that have reached their plateau of vintage maturity, placed in old vessels or in skins, and sometimes in bottles, they seem to have a certain kind of allure to them. They carry the whispers of time, characterized by the complex aromas of the dry fruit, grapes, the patience of the harvest to bring them in, and the ebullience of the experience of tasting that rare wine. That's what we want to look at this morning. That cultural richness that vivifies the taste buds of wine connoisseurs. We want to look at that this morning. Therefore, in the context of our study this Sabbath morning, a wine connoisseur is someone with a cultivated biblical knowledge of the word, particularly in relation to the atonement of Yeshua. He or she has developed an appreciation for the good wine of the word, being able to discern complex flavors, aromas, methods through extensive tasting education of the word of Yah. That's what we want to look at this morning. So I'm going to invite you to join me in the book of Chizayon, and we're going to look at chapter 6. We will take that portion of the word firstly. And reading from verse 1, and I'm reading from the Alleluia scriptures, it says, "And I saw when the Lamb opened one of the seals, and I heard one of the four living creatures saying, like a sound of thunder, come and see. Put your gaze in my direction." That's what was being said. A voice. "And I looked and saw a white horse, and he who sat on it holding a bow, and the crown was given to him, and he went out overcoming and to overcome. And when he opened the second seal, I heard the second living creature saying, come and see. Come up hither, and I will show you these things." You know, we believe that we're living under the sixth seal. That's where we're living. When we read the book of Revelation, the book of Chizayon, we read chapter 1. And chapter 1 tells us what John saw. He saw the Messiah, Yeshua. And he wrote down what he looks like. He said, I saw him, and he had woolly hair, and he had feet like burnished bronze, So in the first portion of the book, Yeshua made sure that Yohanan would have a clear description of who he is and what he looks like, and Yohanan was to take that message to the assembly. Chapter 2 and chapter 3 speak to us by way of the 7 assemblies throughout time. And at the end of chapter 3, we're given a clear description of what the end time assembly looks like. It's naked, and it's blind, it's wretched, it has money, but it lacks faith. And so we see an assembly that is indicted at the end of chapter 3. The assembly is being judged by this bronze skin, curly, woolly hair man we called Yahushua. And so when we go into chapter 4, we see this same man begins to judge the assembly. And in chapter 5, we see that this lion of a man is the only one that is able to open the scrolls that has 7 seals. And perhaps you're curious enough to want to know, well, what's in those seals? Our actions, our words, our works. Everything that we have done during the time that we have lived on the earth, they're recorded in there. Those idle words that you spoke, thoughts that you conceived that no one else has ever known, they're recorded by the recording angels, and out of which you will be judged. And so we understand that the same Messiah here, the judge of all the earth, because the Father judgeth no man, but he giveth all judgment to his Son, according to Yohanan 5 and verse 22. He's the one who is judging all things. And so we learn that he came into the world during the 77th Jubilee. That's when he came. He came into the world in the 4th millennium. And so if we understand that in the context of Bereshit, that's Genesis chapter 6 and verse 3, I would like to read that for you. Then Yahweh said, my Ruach, my spirit, shall not strive with man forever, because he also is flesh. Nevertheless, his days shall be 120 years, if I may interpret that. Man's years should be 120 times 50 equal 6,000 years. So we're in the 6th seal. And this morning we want to look at that and indeed preserve the vintage wine. The vintage wine. So we're told that this voice spoke. And I heard a voice in the midst of the four beasts, saying, a measure of wheat for a penny. In some word, it says a denarius. And 3 measures of barley for a penny. And see thou hurt not the oil and the wine. The implication here, hard times are coming, difficult times, a time of famine, not only for food, but for the word of Yah, says the prophet Amos. The times are so difficult, the word says, that you're going to be spending all that you have on food, and everything will cost you a day's wages, a penny. The voice offers no inflection, and yet the tonality of the voice has made you aware that the cadence of the voice was quite serious. And so at this point, the voice is letting us know that all the incidents, political and otherwise, that you see unfolding before your very gaze, they are signs of the times. If you should look in Ukraine, there are signs. If you go to Gaza, in the conflict there, it's a sign. If you should travel to the Caribbean, to Venezuela, that's a sign of the times. If you should go to the east where the Euphrates River flows, it's a sign of the times. Because we are made to understand that when the Euphrates River is drying up, according to Revelation chapter 16, at such time, 3 unclean spirits will come out of the mouth of the dragon, being Satan, and that influence will be such that it will go into all the kings of the world, the leaders of the world. That's what the word says. So from the time that Yeshua came to now, if we calculate this from the 77th Jubilee, we would have only 43 Jubilees left. We can do the math. We don't have that much time left according to biblical records. And so it bothers me when I see people behaving as if they have all the time in the world. No. Yah has allocated so much time. And this morning, we're told, don't hurt the oil and the wine. Preserve them. But what is he talking about? What are we to understand from this? When we read in Matthew, we see that when the master who owns the vineyard and he hired laborers and he agreed to pay them, and they agreed with him that they would be paid a denarius, a penny a day, which was the wages were made to understand of the Roman soldiers at one time, a penny a day. And so we're told that time will become so hard that your all day's salary would buy wheat. That's how expensive things will become. And so the wheat, we know, is that bread, that food that we need. But we need the spiritual food more than we need the physical food, particularly in these last days, because it's impossible to please Yah without faith. And so I want to come with you to the book of Lucas, that's the book of Luke, the physician, and we will take chapter 22. And as was read for us earlier, we will dilate upon verse 14. And when the hour had come, he sat down, and the 12 emissaries, these are his Talmudim, his disciples, were with him. And he said to them with a desire, I have desired to eat this Pesach. I desire to eat the Passover with you before my suffering. For I say to you, I shall certainly not eat of it again until it is filled in the reign of Elohim. I don't want you to miss this. I desire, says the Messiah, to eat the Passover, the Pesach, with you, but I'm not going to eat it again until the kingdom made new. They tell me the Passover is fulfilled. The word here says the ultimate Passover is in the kingdom made new. That's what the word says. And so the implication here, not only so, but the command is, as often as you do this in remembrance of me. The Passover comes around once a year, not every 13th Sabbath, not every month, not every week. So to keep in alignment with the word of Yah, you do this every year. And so, for I say to you, I shall certainly not eat of it again until it is fulfilled in the reign of Elohim. And take the cup, giving thanks, he said, take this and divide it among yourselves. For I say to you, I shall certainly not drink of the fruit of the vine until the reign of Elohim comes. I'm not going to do it again until the rain comes. And taking the bread, giving thanks, he broke it and gave it to them, saying, this is my body, which is given for you. Do this, how? In remembrance of me. Likewise, the cup also after supper, saying, the cup is a renewed covenant in my blood, which is shed for you. Let's hold it there. We read in Revelation chapter 6 and verse 6 that we ought to preserve the wine. Preserve it. The old wine. Not the new wine, the old wine. Yeshua here gives perspicuity, clarity. He gives the lucidity of thought here. He's saying the cup, the wine, is my blood, the covenant of which concretize your relationship with me in covenant. Remember, a few weeks ago, we studied and we said in a covenant relationship, one, there has to be an offer and an acceptance. He said to the disciple, "Come, follow me." Offer, and they came. There has to be a covenant meal. Here he is. They call it the Last Supper, but he's made it clear it's not the Last Supper. There is another supper that where Abraham and Isaac and Jacob will sit at the table, and if we're faithful, we will join him there. So I don't know how they said this is the Last Supper. He says there's another supper coming. And also in a covenant agreement, it has to be ratified by blood. And so the next day they crucify him, and the covenant here, the new covenant, the renewed covenant, was ratified by the blood of Yeshua. So we know now, in part, what the wine is. And so when he told some of his disciples, "You've got to eat my flesh and drink my blood," because they had not had the learning that they should have had, they thought it was somewhat cannibalistic. They said this teaching is too hard, but all that he was saying is this: in order to be in covenant with me, you must accept my blood and accept and drink my blood. And the word says 70 of his disciples left him because they could not deal with this kind of teaching. So, but we understand now that he's dealing with the covenant. So if we cast our minds back to Exodus, Shemot, chapter 19, and verse 5 and 6, we're told, Yah raised up one called Moshe to lead the children of Israel that had been in slavery to come and worship him. He said, "If you obey me, you will be unto me a kingdom of priests." We talked about that a couple of weeks ago. They said everything that Yah says we will do. But when we moved over the chapter 32 of the same book, Shemot, Exodus, they had found themselves a golden calf fashioned by Aaron, and they started to worship this golden calf. At which time they broke the commandments. And so they were given a new set of laws we call the Levitical laws. I present to you this morning that the Levitical laws, that's the new wine. That's the new wine. Yah had intended to give them the old wine that Abraham drank, the old wine. But they were disobedient. So in that regard, I want you to join me now at Lucas, again, the physician, chapter 5, and we will take 33, reading on. That's verse 33. And they said unto him, "Why do the Talmudim of Yohanan fast often and make prayers? And likewise the Talmudim of the Pharisees, but thine eat and drink." And he said unto them, "Can you make the children of the bride's chambers fast while the bridegroom is with them. But the days will come when the bridegroom shall be taken away from them, and then they fast in those days. And he spoke also a parable unto them. No man putteth a piece of new garment upon an old, if otherwise then both the new and the old, it would rent. No man putteth a piece of a new garment upon an old, if otherwise then both the new make it a rent, and the piece that was taken out of the new agreeth not with the old. And no man putteth new wine into old bottles, else the new wine will burst the bottles and be spilled, and the bottles shall perish. But new wine must be put in new bottles, and both are preserved. No man also having drunk old wine straightway desireth new. Did you get that? For he said, the old wine is better. Now understand what Yeshua is here saying through the parable. He's saying that, as I indicated when I started, that there is a certain kind of allure to old vintage wine put in barrels, and over the years it has matured. And a connoisseur that comes along and tastes that wine is able to tell you where this wine is from and how old the wine is. And so Yeshua is here teaching us that this is the old wine that Melchizedek gave to Abraham in chapter 14. And that's what we're called to drink of. And so when I started, I was not intended for you to become inebriated at all. I was not talking about alcohol, but I was talking about the spiritual wine given by Yeshua. And so when they sinned, the children of Israel sinned, and they were given the Levitical order of things, the priesthood, that's the new wine. That's the new wine. So Yeshua is telling you that the Melchizedek priesthood is greater than the Levitical priesthood, the Aaronic priesthood. That's the new wine. Because notice something, when you put new wine into skin rather than bottles, the skin would stretch, it would expand because of the fermentation. But in the old wine, the skin has gone to the level, the end of its elasticity. It doesn't stretch anymore. So if you put a new wine in there, it would burst. That's what he's telling you. You do not, in colloquial term, put the Levitical priesthood on the same footing of the Melchizedek footing. You don't do that. It would burst. It's a more beautiful wine. It excites your taste buds. And so we need to understand what is happening. So perhaps you're ready now to join me in the book of Yohanan, and we will go to chapter 2. And on the third day, on the what? The third day, there was a wedding in Cana of Galilee, or Galilee. And the mother of Yeshua was there. So you see here, Yeshua started his ministry at a wedding. And according to Matthew 22, he's going to conclude it at a wedding feast. Verse 2, and both Yeshua and his Talmudim, his disciples, were invited to the wedding. And you notice something? They came. But in chapter 22 of Matthew, he says the people who were invited did not come. They were busy, like so many people today are too busy to keep the Sabbath. They would prefer to go to the ball game, to go shopping, and to get their hair all set for tonight when they enjoy themselves, but they have no time for Yahweh. And I say, whoever is too busy for Yah is really too busy. And when they were short of wine, they're at a wedding, and they could be nothing more embarrassing than to run out of food or wine. But in this case, in the Eastern world, to run out of wine is really quite slack. But he says, and when they were short of wine, the mother of Yeshua said to him, they have no wine. And so we read this. The voice said, they have no wine. What is she saying? What is she saying? Remember, as we studied earlier, the wine, Luke chapter 22, is, he says, this is my blood that is shed for you. When my blood was spilled, this is the atonement blood that I take to, according to Hebrews chapter 9, to the temple in heaven. And when I sprinkled it, your blood is atoned for. His mother said, they have none of this. They're not under covenant. Why is she saying that? Because when Yeshua came, the Levitical priesthood was still in force. John the Baptist, or Yohanan the Immerser, was the last of the Old Testament priest, even though he was in the New Testament. He was the legal high priest at the time. That's why he was able to baptize Yeshua. They have no covenant because the one that they have, it's their schoolmaster. And so Luke 16:16, the laws and the prophet, they were spoken, they were preached up until Yohanan the Immerser. But now, the kingdom. Your schoolmaster will take you to the time of refreshing, when the Messiah comes, and when the Messiah comes, he will give you the old wine again. He will give you the old wine. So we're told in Revelation chapter 6, preserve the oil and the wine. So we know that the oil is a representation of the Ruach, the Holy Spirit. And the oil is the blood, because the life of the flesh is in the blood. So that drives us where? To 1 Corinthians chapter 3 and verse 16, because we are told, or the question is asked rather, did you not know that you are the temple of Yah? Did you not know? You're the sanctuary. So hold it there. We're told in Jeremiah 31 to 33. We're told in Hebrews 8:10, and we're told in Hebrews 10:16, the very same thing. I'm going to make a covenant. I'm going to do what? Make a covenant with whom? With Judah and with Israel. I see no covenant with that which you call the church. It says with Israel. And Ephesians 2, the minute you accept Yeshua, baptize in his name, you are now an Israelite, no Gentiles. So we got to understand this. He comes to give you the whole wine because he said it's better. And many people today still operate under the Aaronic priesthood. If you read Hebrews, that's Hebrews chapter 7 and verse 12, he says the priesthood has changed. Most people would agree that Yeshua is our high priest. He said when the priesthood changed, so does the law. So how could you have a priest that did not come from Aaron? He came from Jehudah, and you still operate under the Aaronic priesthood. It doesn't make sense. Truth has to be logically consistent. It has to be verifiable by the word. And it has to be existentially relevant in the times in which we live. So we are told, preserve the oil. Preserve the raw. Don't grieve the Spirit. Because the law, we're told, is in your heart. The Ruach dwells in you. So you can see how Yeshua has moved the very notion, the idea, from the physical temple to the spiritual temple. So you're asked to preserve the Ruach in your heart and the law in your heart. And the blood of Yeshua is what cleanses you. You are the temple. You are. You've got to preserve that. So when his mother said, they have no wine, she's in essence saying, they're not on the covenant. Because it is his blood that is represented by the wine. We read in chapter 22. Yeshua said to her, woman, what is that to me and to you? My hour is not yet come. Did you hear me? This is his first mission, his first, they say, miracle. It's not his first miracle, because he did many miracles when he was a young boy. Of course, they pulled it out of the scripture. Just in passing, I let you know that. What is that to me? This is not my time yet. He said, my time is down the road when I'm going to be having Passover with my disciple, and I'm going to then inaugurate the renewal of the covenant. That's my time, and that's when I'll give my disciple the wine, the Melchizedek wine, the old wine. But you know what? I'll give them a taste right now, a foretaste of the wine. That's what he did. And so when we read Yohanan chapter 2, all we're reading is a foretaste, an old wine being given too early. Because he had not yet sanctioned the renewal yet until that night they call the Last Supper. That's what his mother said to the servants, do whatever he says. And there were 6 stones water jugs standing there according to the mode of the cleansing of the Yehudim, the Jews, each holding 2 or 3 liters. Yeshua said to them, fill the water jugs with water, and they filled them up to the brim. It's interesting that there were 6 of them. You kind of get the impression that one for every millennium. Everybody gets a drink of the wine. Fill them. And he said to them, now draw out and take it to the master of the feast. So they took it. But when the master of the feast had tasted the water that had become wine and did not know where it came from, though the servants who had drawn the water knew, the master of the feast called who? The bridegroom, and said to him, every man at the beginning puts out the good wine. He puts out the what? The good wine. And when they have drunk, then that which is poorer, you have kept the good wine until now. You've kept the best wine until the last. He could say, well, I tried to offer it to you in Exodus, but you rejected it and you chose a golden calf. And so I withdrew that. Well, in fact, you broke the covenant. But now your schoolmaster has led you all this way, and I'm now reestablishing the Melchizedek priesthood. Everybody is a priest. Tell your pastor, your elder. You know how deliberate I am. I'm keeping it to one specific gender. Because the word says the priest, he ought to be the husband of one wife, not the wife of one husband. That's the word. You can speak to Timothy if you want further clarification in 1 Timothy 3 or Titus 1. So everybody now is a priest because we're under the Melchizedek order. So we're made to understand that when Yeshua spoke his parable of the Good Samaritan, what happened? What happened there? It says, this man had fell among thieves, did he not? He was on his way to where? Where was he going? The journey was between Jerusalem and Jericho, and he fell among thieves, did he not? And the word says a priest came by. Obviously, a Levitical priest. And who else came? A Samaritan came. Come with me to Luke again. I'm dealing with a physician again because he's a sick man and we need a physician to look at him. And we will take chapter 10 of Luke. And Yeshua answered, said, a certain man, they wanted to know, what is it that you have to validate the fact that you claim to be the Messiah? So he spoke a parable to them. A certain man went down from Jerusalem to Jericho and fell among thieves. They stripped him of his raiment and wounded him. And there came a priest on the way, and when he saw him, he passed by on the other side. And he saw on the other side, a Levite. When he was at that place, came and looked at him and passed by on it, just the same way. But a certain Samaritan, as he journeyed, came where he was, and when he saw him, he had compassion on him, and went in and bound up his wounds, pouring oil and wine. Preserve the wine and the oil. Preserve it. That's what we're told. Preserve it. That's how Luke recorded it in chapter 10, reading from verse 30 to 35. And set him on his own beast, and brought him to an inn, and took care of him. And on the morrow, when he departed, he took out 2 pence. That's 2 days' wages, 2 denarii, and gave them to the host, and said to him, take care of him, and whatsoever thou spendest more, when I come again, I will repay. Notice something here. The priest and the Levites, these men were noted in their environment to be aligned with Yahweh. They saw a sick man. Many of our churches, institutions today, they have hospital and health care facilities that the members cannot go to because some of them don't even have insurance. The Levites and the priest. That's the contemporary Levite and priest. Many are turned away each day from medical facilities because they don't have the money to pay. This man here. You see, prophecy is not linear. It's a cycle. So we read in chapter 6 that hard times are going to come. But in all that you do, whatever you're going through, preserve the oil and the wine. Make sure that your redemption is certain. Your atonement is done because you now have a new priest in town, a new Cohen, the Cohen Agadah. Preserve him. But a Samaritan pouring his oil and wine. Notice this Samaritan is good. So you know who this is. Remember, the word says one time in the Bible, some lawyer came and said, good master. He said, why you callest me good? There's only one that is good, and that's Yahweh. So if this is a good Samaritan, it's none other than Yeshua. Notice something. He's from Judah, but he became a Samaritan to attend to the wounds of this man. Sometimes we have to step outside of our comfort zone and reach other people where they're at in order to meet their needs. We've got to do that. Sometimes the churches, they have isolated themselves from the very community that they were called to serve. Oh, yes, Brother Levi and Brother Scribe. And Brother Pharisee, I won't even talk about the Sadducee. I won't talk about him because you need to become a Samaritan. But the Jews don't have anything to do with the Samaritan. It matters not. Who is your brother? Who is your neighbor? Who is your neighbor? Preserve. Preserve. So that emotional tone of this Samaritan, his attitude, his feeling was different from the Levite and the priest. His pitch was different. His volume was different. The rhythm of his cadence was different. Everything. His beat, the rhythm, it was beating with peace and comfort, whereas the other two men were in a hurry to get to church, to get to the temple. So your tone is what you sound like. Are you happy? Are you sad? It's your tone. And so your cadence is how you rhythmically deliver that which you're saying. And so when Yohanan said, I heard a voice from the Shemaim, and the voice said, preserve the oil, preserve the wine, that old wine. But they've run out of oil. They have run out of oil. So come with me to Bereshit chapter 14, and we'll take 18 to 20, those few verses there. And Melchizedek, king of Salem, brought forth bread and wine. And he was the Cohen priest of the Most High. He was the Cohen. He was the priest of the Most High. And he blessed him, blessed who? Abraham. And said, blessed be Abraham, the Most High, possessor of heaven and earth, and blessed be the Most High, which hath delivered thine enemies into thine hand, and he gave him tithes of all. Notice it's 3 times in those 2 verses, or 3 verses, it says Most High. Implication there is referring to the plural one. One Yah, but 3 representations in person: Father, Son, and Ruach. 3 times. That's why the angels sing, holy, holy, holy. Kodesh, Kodesh, Kodesh. One Yah. And so when you understand that in the context of Deuteronomy chapter 6 and verse 4, you understand what the word says. There is one Yah, but he is represented by 3 distinct persons. I know some don't go along with that, but it matters not. But it's in the word. And that's why we came here this morning to drink special wine, because that's how it is. Now, as we read also, it says there were 4 beasts in chapter 6. Let's go back to chapter 6 as we try to bring this thing to a more meaningful understanding. Chapter 6. And I heard a voice in the midst of the 4 living creatures saying, a measure of wheat for a denarius, and 3 measures of barley for a denarius, and not harm the oil and the wine. Perhaps you'll remember also that Abraham, when he met with Yahweh, he had some wheat that he made cakes with and gave to them, and even washed their feet. What an encounter. You didn't hear me. I said, when Abraham met Yeshua, rather than Yeshua washing Abraham's feet, Abraham washed his feet. Wow. Now, the point I really want to make, though, is this, that for a beast here, and note when you read Numbers, Bar chapter 2, chapter 10, you understand how the children of Israel, how they arranged themselves around the tabernacle in the wilderness. There were 12, obviously 12 tribes, but they had 4 different leader groups, each representing the depiction here, or the picture graph that we get from here. On the east side, we have the lion of the tribe of Judah that was headed by Judah. On the south side, we had Reuben, the man. And on the west side, we have the ox represented by Ephraim. And on the north side, we have Dan, who was a leader and is represented by the eagle. And so this year, all 4 comes into one picture of Yeshua. As you know, Yeshua is also the red heifer. He's a red heifer. And he is from the tribe of Judah. He's from the tribe of Judah. So everything has to be fulfilled in Yeshua. So we are told that in Yohanan chapter 6:54, come with me there. Whoso eateth my flesh and drinketh my blood hath eternal life. And I will raise him up on the last day. For my flesh is meat indeed, and my blood is drink indeed. He that eateth my flesh and drinketh my blood dwelleth in me, and I in him. Of course, he has to dwell in you because he's the blood. If the blood is not in you, then you're dead even though you're alive, because the life of the flesh is in the blood. And so when he says, I must dwell in you, you've got to understand what he's saying. As the living Father has sent me, and I live by the Father, so he that eateth me, even he shall live by me. This is what? The bread which came down from heaven. It was not Moses who gave you bread. Moses gave you bread in the wilderness. You ate that bread, and they died. But the bread that I'm giving you is a bread that will cause you to live. Because even if you sleep before I come, when I come, he said, I will raise you up in the last days. What do we mean by the last days anyway? Because a long time now, people have been saying we're in the last days. Understand, when he talks about the last days, he's not talking about 24-hour day. Yeshua, as I indicated earlier, he came when? In the 4th day. He came in the 4th day, the 4th millennium. So anytime after that, we only had 3 days left. Well, 2 days for man and 1 for the Sabbath. So when we talk about the last day, we're talking about Thursday and Friday. We are living on the 6th day now. We are in Friday. If anybody asks you what day it is, it doesn't matter when in the week, say it's Friday. It's preparation time. That's what we should be saying. And that's why we need to understand that we need to be drinking the old wine. Get back to the old path, the old tradition of truth. The way you dress, the way you speak, That's it. The whole path. Let's get back to it because Amos 8 in verse 11, as I stated earlier, behold, the days come, the nowadays, saith Elohim, that I will send a famine. A what? A famine in the land, not a famine of bread, nor a thirst for water, but a hearing. A what? A hearing of the words of Yah. It is not that it's not spoken, but it's a hearing of that which is spoken. That's a famine. And so it is time now that we start drinking the real wine. Don't grieve the rock. Because if he leaves, you're in trouble. You are the temple. So when we read 1 Samuel chapter 3, what did we see? We see Yeshua speaking to a young boy because he's no longer in speaking terms with the priest. Turn with me there, 1 Samuel chapter 3. The word says, young Shamuel was serving Yahweh before Eli, and the word of Yah was rare. The bread was rare. People were not getting it in those days. No vision breaking forth. And it came to be in that day that Eli was lying down in his place, and his eyes had begun to grow so dim. That's Laodicea. I said to you that prophecy is not linear, it's a cycle. So the same blindness that attended Shemuel as attended Laodicea. Blind, wretched, poor. And he was unable to see, and the lamp of Elohim had not gone out. Did you hear that? Even though he was blind, the priest was blind. The lamp had not yet gone out. So come with me to Revelation chapter 18. Let me show you who is in a worse position. Revelation chapter 18, and we'll take verse 4, because as I indicated to you that Yohanan was told to come up here in chapter 4. Chapter 5, we see the Lion of the tribe of Judah taking the scroll and opening the seal and started to judge, because he's the only one who could open it. And in chapter 6, he started to open the seal and to look at our deeds. And the question at chapter 6 end is, who shall stand? Who will be able to stand? And chapter 7 and 8 tells you who will be able to stand. Those who are sealed into the covenant. And so 18 now is telling you, if you're not sealed, or if you want to be sealed, come out of these places. And I heard another voice from the Shemahim saying, you see, people are not even listening anymore to preachers, to elders, to tapes you send them, to emails. So Yah is now speaking from above. They're not even listening to angels either. Like Lot. Come out, run for your life, Lot. Mrs. Lot says, I'm not running. And so he's saying, verse 4, and I heard another voice from the Shemahim saying, come out of her, my people, lest you share in her sin, and lest you receive of her plagues. Come with me now to verse 22 and 23. It says, and the second harpist, and musician, and flutist, and trumpeters shall be heard in you no more at all. And no craftsman of any trade shall found in you any more at all. And the sound of the millstone shall not be heard in you any more at all. And the light of the lamp shall not shine. Eli was blind. but the lamp was still on. In Laodicea here, it says the light has gone out. Gone out. And it will not come back again. And the voice of the bridegroom, that's Yeshua, you will not hear him. It shall not be heard. Let me read it for emphasis. Verse 23. And the light of the lamp shall not shine in you anymore at all. Did you get that? It will not shine in you because you did not preserve the oil and the wine. And the voice of the bridegroom and the bride shall not be heard in you, because he's referring to you as a personal temple now, in you anymore at all. For your merchants were the great ones of the earth, for by your drug sorcery, that's what you depend on now. If you're sick, you call your physician first before you pray. Why? James says, if there be any among you is sick, call the elders. James 5:14. But you call and you make an appointment. And I'm not saying you shouldn't go to the doctor. That's not what I'm saying. But I'm saying let's stay in line with the word of Yah. For by your drug sorcery, all the nations were led astray. All the nations were deceived. How many nations? All. Despite the fact that people are trying, and politicians are trying to lower healthcare costs, it says you're already deceived. Because these are the merchants that you rely on, rather than preserving the oil and the wine, the blood that sanctifies your soul. Let it be understood. And let us hear the voice. This is why Yeshua kept saying, I know your works. Why did he know your work? Because he lived among you. He sees everything that you have done. He's recorded everything. And the word said, there is no thing, no temptation among men that he has not gone through. I know your works. You can't trick him. I know your works. You're neither hot nor cold. Let us, brothers and sisters, let us hear the word. And we are commissioned to preserve the oil and the wine. Let us become connoisseurs of old wine, that Melchizedek wine. In Yeshua's name, I pray. Hallelujah.